Hello and welcome to Swiftly Spoken, a fan-made Taylor Swift podcast in which we analyze her artistry, including her lyricism, music videos, and full album retrospectives. As always, we are your hosts, Lisa and Cameron, and in this episode, we'll be giving the detailed backstory to one of Taylor's oldest songs that was eventually released 2 eras after being written, Sparks Fly. In this episode, we're going to be giving a lot of background information and the inspiration for Sparks Fly. Then we're going to be comparing the original lyrics to the officially released version's lyrics. After that, we'll be talking about its eventual release and its reception. Then we'll be speaking about the live performances, the music video, and finally, our hopes for Taylor's version.
To start off, we're going to discuss the background information and the inspiration for the song. So the song originally dates back to October 31st, 2006, and was written when Taylor was just 16. So according to Taylor, the song is about falling for someone who you maybe shouldn't fall for, but you can't stop yourself because there's such a connection and chemistry. Okay, so the hidden message that is included in Speak Now's CD booklet for the song appears to confirm the inspiration for the track. So the hidden message is Portland, Oregon.
Portland, Oregon leads us to the original inspiration behind the song Sparks Fly. So when Taylor was just 16, she appeared playing with Jake Owen in a bar called Duke's Bar and Grill in Portland, Oregon. She appeared there to celebrate Halloween at the 99.5 The Wolf Halloween Bash in 2006. For this performance, she was actually dressed as an angel as it was a Halloween party, and she even wrote a MySpace blog about it where she speaks about the night. On that night is when she wrote the original draft of Sparks Fly. And the original lyrics do hint towards the track being inspired or being about Jake Owen. And it's much more noticeable in these original lyrics to the eventually released lyrics. In the MySpace blog, Taylor wrote, Tuesday, October 31st, 2006, happy Halloween, happy Halloween. I'm sitting at the airport in Portland, Oregon, about to get a red-eye flight to Toronto. She says, I opened up for Jake Owen, and a little backstory, I've had his album on repeat for the past couple of months. It's an amazing album, and I literally cannot stop listening to it. So she goes on to say how much of a fan she is of Jake Owen, and then she even says, turns out he's extremely cool and had bought my album on iTunes. They seem to get on well, and because Taylor had to leave after one song of his set, she says that he played my favorite song, 8 Second Ride, first, so she could hear it. She then goes on to describe the night by confirming that, yes, I stood on stage wings and I convinced my 2 guitar players, Todd and Kevin, to put on those little headbands with the devil ears. So this MySpace post really shows how much Taylor was appreciative of Jake Owen and she really enjoyed that night. And that was the night that inspired Sparks Fly.
Okay, so when discussing Sparks Fly in more recent interviews during the kind of Speak Now era, Taylor admitted that the song was written about a fantasy and not something that actually happened. So even though it was inspired by this night, the lyrics of the song are more kind of about having a crush on someone rather than an experience that genuinely happened. Also during the Speak Now era, Taylor, during a YouTube Presents Taylor Swift interview, she discussed how she used to perform the song live during several kind of bar shows of 40 to 50 people. However, a recorded live performance of the song during one of her concerts made its way onto the internet in 2007. This performance was from the Gold Country Casino in Oroville, California on May 30th, 2007. And this performance and audio is the one where we hear the original lyrics of Sparks Fly.
This performance was actually uploaded by Steve from the Inner Circle way back in 2007, and it kind of gained traction and people started to watch it and really, really enjoy the song. And as you said, this is where we can hear those unchanged original lyrics.
Yes, so it was fans' enthusiasm and passion for the song that convinced Taylor to rework the song a bit and eventually put it on the Speak Now album. Related to fans' enthusiasm for the song, Taylor mentioned that Sparks Fly is a song that I wrote a few years ago and played in concert. When we did a 13-hour meet and greet at CMA Fest, that was a comment that I kept getting over and over again. What about Sparks Fly? Is it going to be on the next record? What's going on with it? And I really appreciate when you guys pay such close attention. I mean, I played that song at maybe 1 or 2 shows, and you guys just jumped on it and really made it something that I had to put it on the album because you guys really showed interest in it. And that's one of my favourite things about you, is that you tell me what you like and what you're thinking and what you're feeling. Basically, fans' enthusiasm for the song and love for the song that eventually made Taylor put it on Speak Now.
It's very interesting because Sparks Fly seems to have a very long history behind it. As we've mentioned, it was written back in 2006 and only finally was considered for Speak Now a few years later. However, in 2007, while Taylor was writing songs and preparing Fearless, there was a photo of her in her bedroom and her bedroom mirror appeared in it. And on it, there was like this tentative track list, which we can suppose was for Fearless. On this track list, written on her mirror in lipstick, the songs that appeared were Permanent, referring to permanent marker, Tell Me Why, I'd Lie, Fearless, Dark Blue, referring to Dark Blue Tennessee, Sparks, which refers to this song, Sparks Fly, and finally The One Thing, which now we know as Bye Bye Baby. This basically means that Taylor had written Sparks Fly, reworked it thinking that it might appear on Fearless, eventually didn't include it on Fearless, and then, as you mentioned, people kept asking her about it so much so that she finally decided to put it onto Speak Now.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because this kind of fan enthusiasm is very similar to the All Too Well 10-minute version, where it's something that fans desperately wanted and kept kind of, almost forcing Taylor to release. And this is very similar with Sparks Fly, where fans were so in love with that song and they desperately wanted a studio version of it that eventually Taylor kind of was like, okay, I think now's the time to put Sparks Fly on an album. And it is quite funny how that is kind of parallel with the All Too Well's 10-minute version's kind of timeline of being released. But it is interesting how it was included on Fearless, and I think that it could have worked really well on Fearless. How do you feel about that?
It is very interesting how it does parallel, like with All Too Well 10-minute version, it's something that she just mentioned and fans like clung to it. In the case of Sparks Fly, obviously they had a whole performance, so it's something more real to cling on to, but it's something that kept coming up again and again and again, and eventually, made Taylor, like you said, kind of even forced her, but not really. She listens to the fans, she knows what they like, and she knows what she likes, and she released it. And yes, it's interesting how it could very have, in my opinion anyway, it could have easily appeared on Fearless because there are themes that appear throughout the song that are very similar to themes that are overarching on the Fearless album. So, for example, there's imagery such as rain falling. There's very similar to the Fearless album. So, on Fearless, there's a lot of songs that mention kissing in the rain, the pouring rain, water. And Sparks Fly, of course, we have, Drop Everything Now, Meet Me in the Pouring Rain. So, in that regard, it is kind of similar and could have fit. However, funnily enough, I do think it fits even better on Speak Now. What about you?
I agree. I think that as much as it would have worked well on Fearless, I think for Speak Now it is kind of perfect because the kind of whole message behind the Speak Now album and its kind of theme was the idea of Taylor was saying stuff that she didn't get the chance to say in the moment. So with things like Enchanted, all the songs on Speak Now, and I think that that's why Sparks Fly is so perfect because it's something that she didn't say in the moment and is now saying, however many years later. But I think that Sparks Fly's message of telling someone, look, I had this huge crush on you, works perfectly with the kind of theme of Speak Now as an album and the kind of concept of it. So I think that even though it would have worked perfectly on Fearless with its kind of lyrical parallels with other Fearless songs, I think that its theme and message works perfectly with Speak Now, and I'm really glad that it eventually ended up on the Speak Now album.
Yes, I'm also glad you mentioned Enchanted because I do find that they are so similar. Like kind of like there's a different mood to them, but
Yeah.
they both kind of like express the same core message of, listen, we just met, it's this whole thing, and I'm kind of enamored by you. And I also found that that's kind of similar to a song released quite a few years later, Gorgeous from Reputation. Like similar in the sense that it's this moment, not being able to tell them perhaps in the moment and then putting it into a song. But yeah, I can see where you're coming from and I completely agree.
Yeah, and also I suppose with that kind of theme is then that kind of, I think Taylor writes a lot about those kind of songs where it's like when you meet someone and you imagine this kind of whole experience with them, obviously with Mine and then its
Hmm.
music video, and then like we mentioned in our Evermore episode with Gold Rush. I think that that's a kind of theme that Taylor writes about a lot, of seeing someone and then kind of having these flash forwards to something that maybe never would happen, but this fleeting like thought and hopes for something that for some relationship or something that might happen, of meeting them in the rain and all these kind of romantic
Yeah, she's
um
very romantic in that way.
yeah, and I think that that's why Sparks Fly works really well, and it does fit perfectly within the other songs on Speak Now. But what is interesting is that obviously that track list, the kind of tentative track list for Fearless that was seen on Taylor's Bedroom Mirror, obviously a lot of those songs never made it onto the original Fearless album, or then the Platinum Edition, or even Taylor's version. So obviously songs like Permanent Marker, I'd Lie, Dark Blue Tennessee, and obviously Sparks Fly. And the only one that did eventually make it onto Taylor's version was The One Thing, but obviously renamed and kind of slightly rewritten and then eventually called obviously Bye Bye Baby. But it is interesting how Permanent Marker, Idle and Dark Blue Tennessee also never made the Fearless Platinum Edition album, or then obviously Taylor's version. So yeah, it's interesting how Sparks Fly eventually did make it on an album. Permanent Marker, Idle and Dark Blue didn't. So maybe we'll get to see those possibly on the debut vault, because clearly back in 2007 Taylor thought that those songs were good enough for the second album. So hopefully she thinks they're good enough for debut Taylor's version.
For sure, or maybe even keeping that in mind, it depends how she feels about them. I also see them kind of more for debut Taylor's version, but maybe even Speak Now Taylor's version with how Sparks Fly eventually ended up on there. I'm not sure, but yeah.
Yeah, possibly, and especially with Fearless, a lot of those songs that were then put on Taylor's version were kind of written way before the debut album was written, with like We Were Happy. So it's interesting that maybe, yeah, she might possibly pull songs that were intended for Fearless or written during Fearless's kind of time, like writing time, or maybe even debut, and pull them on Speak Now with Sparks Fly. I don't think that will be the case, because I feel like there probably would have been a lot of songs written for Speak Now. It is interesting, and also it's worth to mention as well that Sparks Fly works perfectly on Speak Now as well, because it was also solely written by Taylor.
Yes, of
so
course,
that's
I meant
another
to mention
reason.
that.
Yeah, so that's another reason why it works perfectly, I think.
Next, we're going to get into the original lyrics and compare them to the eventually released version's lyrics and see the differences and the things that were changed.
Okay, so the original lyrics that we're going to discuss here depict the version of the song that was performed in 2007, although apparently to Genius, there is an even older version of the song with different lyrics that hasn't been heard. So again, not too sure how true this is, but it will be interesting to maybe one day hear those lyrics, or see them possibly in a kind of like we did with the original All Too Well lyrics in the Lover booklet. But yeah, just thought I'd mention that these lyrics are the ones from the 2007 performance audio that we have.
Now we're going to move on to comparing the differences between what we think is the original version and the released version. So both versions, as Cameron mentioned, are solely written by Taylor. And the first difference that we find is that in the draft version, we have "You say my name for the first time, baby, and I fall in love in an empty bar." These lyrics were replaced on the Speak Now version to "You're the kind of reckless that should send me running, but I kind of know that I won't get far." So this scrapped lyric really places the story in the Portland, Oregon bar, the Duke's Bar and Grill. So this scrap lyric really, really gives us that confirmation that this song is about that 31st of October 2006. Between these two versions, the chorus remains the same, and we carry on until the second verse, which is totally different from the Speak Now version. This verse originally, "So reach out open-handed and lead me out to that floor. I don't need more paper lanterns, take me down, baby, bring on the movie score. 'Cause my heart is beating fast and you are beautiful. I could wait patiently, but I really wish you would." And we go back into the chorus. The lyrics that we all know and love: "My mind forgets to remind me, you're a bad idea. You touch me once and it's really something. You find I'm even better than you imagined I would be. I'm on my guard for the rest of the world, but with you I know it's no good. And I could wait patiently, but I really wish you would." And again, of course, the chorus.
I've always found this verse, the original version, really interesting, with the idea of bring on the movie score, and that's that whole kind of idea of like the pouring rain. It's kind of that like classic kind of movie romantic image, and it's like, bring on the movie score, bring on the the music, and I think there's a really kind of cool lyric. I do really like this verse. I think that the original verse is really interesting with the images of the paper lantern and the movie score, and it's then interesting how then Taylor dropped those images for the eventually released kind of Speak Now version. And then also the thing of like, my heart is beating fast. I just really, really love the original kind of lyrics for this verse, and I think it really adds to the image of it, kind of with the pouring rain and the kind of movie element. But yeah, it is cool that Taylor kind of totally changed this verse in comparison to the first verse, where she only kind of changed a couple lines. But I do generally really love the original verse as well, as much as the released Speak Now version.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how she believed that some of the verses were perfect to leave alone and just leave the same. However, I do kind of prefer the I'm on my guard with the rest of the world, but with you, I know it's no good, to the my heart is beating fast and you are beautiful, because I do feel like that lyric is much more plain and simple, whereas the
Yeah,
other
no, I
one
agree.
kind of
Yeah.
gives more layers. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
that kind of lyric feels very debut, the way that she describes stuff in the debut era.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so yeah, I think I agree there that yeah, the newer lyrics are more stronger, but it is definitely really interesting, the original ones, because obviously they kind of add more background
They
to
definitely do add layers to it,
yeah,
yeah.
and especially to the story and the context of how the song was created.
So the next change that we find is in the bridge, where originally in the scrap lyrics we have "Just keep your beautiful eyes on me, gonna strike this match tonight," whereas the Speak Now lyrics are "Just keep on keeping your eyes on me, it's just wrong enough to make it feel right." So I feel like the sentiment is very similar in both of these lyrics, but with a different tone perhaps. Gonna strike this match kind of makes it feel much more
It's more intense, isn't it? It has a kind of
intense. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, kind of more intense vibe, and also obviously it matches with the main image of this song, which is obviously sparks fly. So the whole idea of striking a match and the sparks that come off of it.
That's
But
so
yeah,
interesting.
so
Yeah,
so
she
yeah,
didn't keep it.
it is yeah, it is strange that she didn't keep that image because that does match with the whole kind of vibe of the song, and also the whole idea of the paper lantern, the kind of fire. So there is this kind of theme running through those original lyrics of kind of sparks and matches and like lanterns. So yeah, no, I think that lyric is
Interesting.
really interesting, and also obviously the "Just Keep Your Beautiful Eyes on Me." Obviously, Taylor has a song called "Beautiful Eyes," so again, I think that these lyrics do kind
Debut.
of fit in the debut kind of universe,
Mm,
whereas the newer lyrics I do prefer "Just Keep on Keeping Your Eyes on Me." That still has that intensity, I think.
yeah. It's
And
like, don't take them off of me. Like,
yeah,
she
yeah,
keep them, keep on keeping. That repetition of keep and keeping
yeah.
is really purposeful in this lyric.
Yeah, no, I do really, really love the new versions, but I definitely think the originals is really interesting and adds to the image of the sparks.
The final change lyrics between these two versions is "I'd love to hate it, but you make it like a fireworks show" in the original, changed to "I'm captivated by you, baby, like a fireworks show" in the Speak Now version. And in this case, I much prefer the Speak Now version. I think it has much more weight to it.
Yeah, me too. I think that yeah, I'd love to hate it. I don't know. I feel like it just doesn't really work with the kind of
I
image
think
of the
the
fireworks show.
"I'd love to hate it" part she kind of covered in the Speak Now version with "It's just wrong enough to make it feel right." Like,
Yeah,
I'd love to hate it. It's just, but it's just wrong enough to love it.
yeah, yeah, no, yeah. That is interesting. Yeah, I totally agree there. I think yeah, that lyric is kind of replaced with that image of the wrong enough to feel right. But yeah, I do prefer the captivated. The idea of yeah, you
Yeah,
know,
like
when you're watching a
again,
fireworks
can't
show.
look away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, I think those lyrics work better.
And that concludes the comparison between the scrapped original version that we can hear in that performance from 2007 and the version that we have officially released on Speak Now. However, we do have some other lyrics for Sparks Fly. Now, we can't really be sure when these lyrics can be dated to. So we don't know if this is like the original version, if this is somewhere in between the ones that we've read and the Speak Now ones, but we'll go commenting it as we read them out to you. But these lyrics are very interesting, and there's even more alternative lyrics, showing us that, as Taylor has mentioned, they were very many reworks of this song, and it has quite a lot of history and background to it. These lyrics have actually been on display, and they were handwritten by Taylor.
Okay, so lots of these lyrics are very similar. However, there's some really, really interesting differences. So, one of the first ones is that one of the lyrics says, "With your brown eyes, baby, as the lights go down, give me something that will haunt me the rest of my nights when you're not around." So, how do you feel about these lyrics?
This is really interesting. So, in the Speak Now version, and even in that original version, in the performance version, should we call it, in both cases, we have "your green eyes." And obviously, green eyes are mentioned because the inspiration to this song, Jake Owen, has green eyes. So, it's really curious to see how in these written lyrics it mentions brown eyes.
Yes, and that possibly suggests maybe that these handwritten lyrics were during maybe the kind of not for the original version, because maybe they were possibly the reworked ones for Fearless, or maybe for Speak Now. Maybe she intended on possibly changing the lyrics and changing the meaning of the song, but decided to stick. Or maybe these are the original, and that's why it's quite hard to kind of work out where these kind of sit. But yeah, it's really interesting that there was a different colour eye, and clearly that, you know, maybe there was someone else in mind for these lyrics.
Right, maybe she was intending to rework them to make them kind of dedicate them to perhaps a different person in that moment. Yeah, that's very, very interesting.
Chorus is very on these handwritten lyrics is similar, totally similar to both the live 2007 version and the release Speak Now version. However, the second verse again is slightly different. So the lyrics are: lift your open hand and take me out to that empty floor. Dim the paper lanterns and bring on the movie score. This night is the 31st and you are beautiful. So let's make it count now, baby. I really wish you would. So obviously this totally confirms that this was on Halloween. Totally confirmed it. And also, again, the images of the paper lanterns are still in this one. But I think that's really, really cool. This night is the 31st, which is, it's just so interesting. I really love seeing the original kind of lyrics for Taylor songs, because they do add like so much more context sometimes, I
With
find.
that in mind, I'm feeling that this could even be an earlier,
Yes,
um,
this might be the version
and
that Genius kind of mentioned about the, yeah,
yeah,
the
maybe
version that
because
Unheard.
I know it says brown eyes, but you never know. Like Taylor might have thought that his eyes were brown. I'm not sure, but this night is 31st makes it really like a this feels like an early version to me.
Yeah, no, I do feel that as well, especially lyric. And there's lots of kind of scribbled out sections as well that are really, really hard to decipher. So it's interesting what is behind those scribbled outs, because they probably would add even more possible context.
Yeah, to
But
see this image, it will be on screen during the YouTube video if you're over on YouTube, but we will also be uploading it onto our Instagram at Swiftly Spoken Podcast. And if you guys can decipher anything else, just let us know because this is so interesting.
there's some more lyrics that are different to both the 2007 and the Speak Now. Keep your beautiful eyes on me and make no borderlines. Stay with me when the walls caved in. Forgive me when I can't take in everything. So the next section is quite hard to decipher because Taylor has scribbled out a lot of the lyrics. However, the next section appears to read: you are captivated by tonight, the moment. I swear I saw sparks. And then on the side, in the margin, Taylor's written, you kiss me like you meant it. Again, how do you feel about this bridge? It's really I really love the image of the walls caved in. So yeah, how are you feeling about it?
Remind me of the imagery of Dancing with Our Hands Tied, another
Yeah,
Reputation song here, but yeah, it's kind of very intense. Like, stay with me when the wolves are caving in, and I can't take in everything you are. Wow, that's very intense. Yeah,
it is.
it's kind of these alternative lyrics are very intense. So are the original, and so are the reworked ones. But it's an amazing song, and for it to have so many lyrics, it does remind me of All Too Well in a way that,
Yeah, no, I
it went through
agree.
all these changes.
Yeah, definitely, and that it had to kind of be cut down and altered in different kind of formats. But finally, we'll mention lyrics below the bridge on this on the handwritten lyrics, and these lyrics read: "We stood at the gate, and you kissed me with the moon on your face, and you'll kiss me." And
I don't really
adding
know where these would fit.
fit me too. I'm not too sure, but they add again further kind of context and information maybe behind the night with the moon. I guess that kind of fits with the kind of Halloween vibe. But yeah, I'm not too sure where these would fit. Whether these would be the kind of outro, or
Maybe.
maybe a kind of second part to the bridge before you go back into the chorus again. But yeah, it's really these lyrics, these handwritten lyrics, are really really interesting, and I'm so glad that we have them and can look at them, because I always find it fascinating seeing. It's a bit like with Everything Has Changed. With those handwritten lyrics, it's so fascinating seeing how the song kind of was
Evolved,
changed and
yeah.
altered and evolved. But yeah, these lyrics, wherever they kind of fit. And are you feeling like these are possibly the original lyrics?
I feel after having read them all out and analysed them together, I do feel like these are a rough initial draft. Then we have what we're calling the original version or the performance version, which obviously is the one that she sang in 2007. And then finally, chronologically, we would have the Speak Now ones. So yeah, I feel like these are original. How are you feeling about it?
I do feel like that now as well. I felt like maybe with the brown eyes kind of lyric that these might be possibly later than the 2007 performance version. But I think, yeah, the mention of the 31st and all the kind of specific details about the kind of the gate, the moon, I think that is something that would be very in the moment. And yeah, no,
And it's so rough. It's so like so many scribbles, such a rough draft
yeah,
that I
exactly.
feel that this one kind of precedes the other one.
Yeah, definitely. I feel the same as well. And also, what's quite interesting to mention is obviously another song written around the same time, Permanent Marker, which was also performed around the same time, 2007. That was given extra lyrics and a bridge in some performances. So I guess maybe Taylor was
Right.
playing around with lots of the songs, possibly in the thought that they might appear on Fearless and trying to maybe possibly enhance on them and improve on them. So maybe that's why the 2007 version is slightly, the performance of Sparks Fly is slightly different to this one. Maybe she was feeling like, oh, I'm going to change up the lyrics a bit. Or maybe these are changed up lyrics. It is hard to kind of ground it, but I think that, like you said, the specific details that are included does suggest that maybe these are the original lyrics.
Yeah, it's a shame we don't have any specific timestamps, but even so, it really attests that Sparks Fly has this rich and long history behind it. And as you said, it's so interesting to see Taylor's songwriting process, how things get changed. And I'm so glad that she knows that we're so interested in these kind of things. And that's why during the Reputation era, she showed all these behind the scenes videos of her crafting her songs. And just as with Gorgeous, it's so interesting to see how those little changes were made and how she adapted the song. This is kind of similar to that, but we of course only have it written down. But I'm very appreciative to have these lyrics. It's so interesting to see. Finally, regarding the release and the critical reception of this song, as we've been mentioning, it was eventually officially released with the Speak Now album on the 25th of October 2010. So this is almost 4 whole years after it was originally thought of and written, which is crazy. It's the longest amount of time between at that point between a song being written by Taylor and eventually released. With that in mind, when Taylor released it, she stated that this is a song I wrote a few years ago and I have been working on ever since. It's been awesome to see it change over the years. The fans have heard it before in concert, but there have been some really cool changes that I'm very proud of and I can't wait for them to hear.
Okay, so upon Sparks Fly's release, it received incredibly positive reviews from music critics who praised it for its kind of upbeat tempo, and also they praised Swift's lyrics, and they claimed that the song was kind of a perfect crossover between country and pop. Following the release of Speak Now, the song debuted at number 17 on the US Billboard Hot 100 and at number 28 on the Canadian Hot 100 due to strong digital sales. The song was then later released as the fifth single from Speak Now on July 18th, 2011. After the song was released as a single, it re-entered the US Billboard Hot 100 at number 84 and it peaked at number 1 on the US Billboard Hot Country Songs chart and was certified platinum by the Recording Industry Association of America for sales of over 1 million copies.
In regards to the live performances, of course, they are very important to the lifespan of this song. As we mentioned earlier, the live performance that was uploaded to YouTube was captured at the Gold Country Casino in Oroville, California on May the 30th, 2007. This was a very important moment because without this, the song at that time it was unreleased, so it was only being performed, for fans who were there. If it hadn't have been uploaded and traction hadn't have been created around it, perhaps you wouldn't have what we have now.
Yeah, that is interesting whether Sparks Fly would have ever had been officially released or not, or whether it just would have kind of
Kind of like
never,
Permanent Marker,
would have just kind of never, never had a life.
officially.
And especially, I suppose, with the Permanent Marker as well, obviously we have a kind of unreleased studio-y kind of demo version, and
That is true.
also reasonably HD kind of performances of it. Whereas obviously with Sparks Fly, yeah, if this video was never put up and put on YouTube and put on the internet, yeah, would we have ever got Sparks Fly on Speak Now, on Speak Now, yeah, which is really, really interesting. So yeah, I wonder what its life would have been if that video hadn't ever been uploaded and fans hadn't ever kind of built this enthusiasm for it.
So the song was performed with banjos and violins, and as we've mentioned, it contained those different lyrics that we've broken down. Sparks Fly, once it was released, then became the opening song of the Speak Now World Tour, really becoming an important moment for the Speak Now era in general. The performance begins with an opening montage about how people should speak now when they, about how they feel, and then Taylor raises from a cloud of smoke and she says, "Drop everything now." And "drop everything now" is kind of a very important quote that has been used throughout Taylor's career. So I think by Taylor Nation a few times as well to
Yep.
tease certain things. The live performance uses electric guitars instead of banjos, and it was eventually released on Taylor Swift's first live album, which is the Speak Now World Tour Live. Taylor also has performed this song at the CMA Music Festival, and it was the first song that Taylor performed on her debut in the iHeartRadio Music Festival in 2012 in Las Vegas. Sparks Fly then became a regular part of the setlist of Taylor Swift's Red Tour, and then was also performed acoustically at her 1989 World Tour, the show in Vancouver. Another important performance of Sparks Fly was during Taylor's performance at the Formula One Grand Prix. And the final performance we have up to date of Sparks Fly was from 2018, where she performed it as the surprise song on the Reputation Stadium tour in Columbus.
Sparks Fly became so important and obviously then became a single that it was even given a music video. So a music video for the song was announced on August 8th, 2011 on Taylor's official website, and then it premiered on August 10th, 2011 on Taylor's official website at 4:30 p.m. So the video is directed by Christian Lamb, and it features kind of clips of various performances from the Speak Now World Tour, as well as never seen before footage at the beginning of the video. So much of the footage for the video was captured at 4 different tour date locations, including one show in Newark, New Jersey. And also in the music video, there's kind of footage from a rain show, and that was captured during one of the summer shows at the Gillette Stadium. Also, what's quite interesting about this music video is that it was actually temporarily removed from Taylor's YouTube channel on April 3rd, 2020, but then returned the next day with a previously unseen HD version. There was lots of talk about it. I remember when it got removed and everyone kind of panicked a little, but thankfully we got an enhanced version of the music video just a day later. So the video currently has over 81 million views as well.
So with that, we've basically discussed all of the things that we could discuss about Sparks Fly, except for our hopes for what may come on Speak Now Taylor's version in regards to this song. So it's very interesting, as we've discussed, to keep in mind that Sparks Fly is a song that, just like All Too Well, was loved by the fans, and they encouraged Taylor to release it, just as with the All Too Well 10-minute version. How do you feel about Sparks Fly? Of course, we know that it will be included in Speak Now Taylor's version, and we know that the main version that we'll get of it will be exactly the same as the Speak Now original version. But how are you feeling about it in general?
I don't think we will get an alternative version. I think that All Too Well is a massive exception. And I don't think that we will get that on any other album. I don't think we'll get an All Too Well, another kind of 10-minute or longer or original version of something. But I think it would be really, really cool to get the original version, especially with those handwritten lyrics. And to be fair, I suppose we have got things like the Lakes original version, but obviously the lyrics aren't different. It's more the production. So I'm not too sure, but it would be really, really cool to get it. I just don't really see it being a thing. I don't know if there's that much enthusiasm for it as much as there was for the 10-minute version of All Too Well. As much as
Right.
Sparks Fly is a massive fan favourite, I think things like Enchanted have kind of taken over a little in terms of fan favourites on Speak Now, especially recently with the TikTok trend. Not that Enchanted will get a kind of 10-minute or longer version at all, but I feel like maybe there might be more focus because on these albums, Taylor's kind of pushed certain singles, hasn't she? And obviously, All Too Well 10-minute version was the one that was massively pushed for Red. So I'm intrigued to see what will be the one that is pushed and performed maybe for Speak Now. And I feel like it will possibly be Enchanted more than Sparks Fly. So I'm not sure if it'll get the same treatment as like All Too Well. But I think it's really, really cool. It would be really, really cool to get a different version of it and a possibly longer version with alternative lyrics. So yeah, how are you feeling about that?
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I don't think there's much of a chance of us getting an alternative or alternate version. As you said, All Too Well, the hype for the 10-minute version up to its release was kind of always there. Whereas for Sparks Fly, there was that same kind of buzz, but obviously between 2006 and
Yeah,
2010. And once that Speak Now version was released, it kind of died off some more because if you want to listen to the original lyrics, you've kind of got those performances from back
yeah,
in the day. And if you want to listen to a HD version, live or not, then you have, the Speak Now version.
yeah.
So with that in mind, there isn't so much buzz. However, if the Speak Now stands out there, I think we should all be speaking about this a bit more because I would love to hear obviously Sparks Fly on Speak Now, the normal version,
Yeah.
but also get this original alternate version. It would be so interesting with more banjos maybe in the background
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
something
no,
like that. I'd love
I
to hear it.
Me too. I would really love to hear it, but I do totally agree that yeah, the hype was kind of between debut and Speak Now, and then the hype kind of died once they got it because it was like, oh,
Yeah,
we finally got Sparks Fly. So yeah, I feel like there maybe hasn't been, and maybe newer fans possibly aren't aware of
of the backstory.
because yeah of the backstory or that there was this original version, whereas we are fans kind of constantly making people aware that there was a longer version of All Too Well, and Taylor mentioned it a lot,
Yeah.
whereas Taylor hasn't really ever mentioned it again since its kind of initial release,
Yeah, with
since
All
its
Too
Speak Now release.
Well, yeah, with All Too Well, we kind of like people were incessant about it forever because obviously during the Red 1989 era we had that, and then in the Lover era with the appearance of the scrap lyrics in the
Yeah,
Lover
booklets.
diaries,
Yeah,
yeah, they kind of created hype again
and then Taylor obviously in
unknowingly.
her Rolling Stone
Yeah,
like
she mentioned
podcast
it.
interview, she then mentioned it and said about the CD that
Yeah, for
was they
sure.
performed it on the rehearsals for the Speak Now tour. Her mum made them burn it on a CD, and then obviously it had the F word in it. So yeah, Taylor has kind of mentioned it through lots of different eras to kind of adding more fuel to the kind of flame and fire of people
Yeah,
wanting it. Whereas yeah, unfortunately with Sparks Fly, it hasn't really had that same treatment, so I don't think we would get it, and I don't think it would be different enough for it to be
right.
necessary. Because obviously the choruses, whereas with All Too Well, there's like a whole extra
So
five
much
minutes,
added, yeah.
yeah, added to it. That I think with Sparks Flight, it would just be that the verses are different, and I don't know if maybe people, like you said, would just be like, well, I can just listen to the 2007 performance one if I want to hear the different verses. So I'm not too sure, but
I don't know. I mean, if Taylor really wanted to do it, I think it is a cool song to kind of pull out from Speak Now and give it a bit of a special treatment
yeah,
because of how it came about, mostly. I
yeah,
mean, as we've discussed, this backstory is absolutely really cute and really interesting, in my opinion. So if Taylor kind of mentioned that, brought people up to speed, and then discussed why she has placed in an alternate version or whatever. I think that could be cool. However, as you said, I don't think it's going to happen,
no,
unfortunately.
yeah, no.
But
I will be interested to see though, like you said, whether Taylor does mention about how Sparks Fly kind of
came
evolved,
about,
because then obviously technically it will evolve again. Obviously, all of the versions are now evolving into Taylor's version. But I think Sparks Fly is one of those songs that has actually evolved the most. What with kind of those original handwritten lyrics, then
yes,
the
so many
2007
iterations.
the 2007 performance, then obviously the Speak Now studio album version, then the live performance, which was slightly different. Kind of the final chorus is slightly longer, and obviously it starts with "Drop Everything Now," and then
Hmm.
obviously now we'll have Taylor's version. So I think that song has evolved. So, and then obviously it was on the Red tour. She performed it on the 1989 tour. Even brought it back for the F1 performance, and then on Rep. So it has like constantly been brought back. So maybe, but
Yeah,
I
I don't know.
definitely
It depends how
don't
much
want to
she
get my head.
feels
Yeah,
it's a fan favorite or not.
yeah. I think it is. I definitely think that Sparks Flight is, but weirdly, I'm finding that at the moment, not weirdly, but it's
Yeah,
interesting
Enchanted,
that
Enchanted. Yeah,
Enchanted is massively kind of like blown off and is
and this is
becoming a huge fan
something
favorite.
for sure. This is something that we can discuss in a future episode about Speak Now, Taylor's version. But Enchanted is very, very interesting to see how that could be given a lot of protagonism because Speak Now was originally intended to be named
Yes.
Enchanted.
Yeah.
So, very interesting, all of this. But yeah, if you are a fan of Sparks Fly and you would like an alternative version of it, let us know. And also, if you have been a fan of Taylor for a short while, please do let us know as well if you knew about the backstory of Sparks Fly, if it's something that, newer fans do know of, or if this podcast was a way for you to learn about it. With that, we have reached the end of this very interesting episode. It has been really, really fun to go back and look at all of the different lyrics of Sparks Fly and how it has evolved throughout time. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to rate us on Spotify and on Apple, or leave us a comment and a like over on YouTube. And if you want to keep up to date with us and see when we're releasing bonus content or get some behind the scenes episode extras, then follow us over on Instagram, which is at Swiftly Spoken Podcast.